Most of this stuff I would say, but I try.
And another thing.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back for the last week of the regular season, week 18. Woo! Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Top Stacks Edition strategy show right here. We're in business, baby. We're talking football, and there are a lot of moving parts for this one, no doubt about it. Whether it's the fact that we still don't have lines for Bills, Patriots, for Bengals, and Baltimore. I was actually doing the picks video over on OddsShopper, trying to prepare for some of that today. We don't have that. I'm not sure when we will. Likely not until we get until we get confirmation on whether or not Bills Bengals is going to be resumed. Called a tie. Do they push the season back a week? I have no idea at this point. So that comes into play here. There's a lot of moving parts. There's also, those old contract incentives that we're going to talk about. Some milestones. Week 18 milestones, in my opinion, are flat out bullshit, by the way. Just put a straight asterisk next to it. That's what we should be doing. Sure, it's cool, but you can't take 17 games compared to 16. The great OJ Simpson goes out and had 2,000 rushing yards in a 14-game season. Why does no one ever? I want to know why no one ever talks about that.
That's insane. Yeah.
I'm kidding. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D, over on the Twitters, joined by Neil Orfield, the showdown shaman himself, but also knows a little something about these main slates. Follow him at PlayerQ DFS. What's going on, brother?
I've been up for more than 3 hours. Probably the first time we've done this show where I've been awake for more than 3 hours. No, it's not nice. It was not intentional. I went to bed around 2 a.m. last night. I didn't fall asleep, I should say, until around 2 a.m. last night. I get up in the morning to let my dog out. So our routine is we put him in a crate at night. And then in the morning, like anytime, if I wake up after 6, I wake up, I get him out of the crate, let him go to the bathroom, and then I go back to sleep. So that was a plan this morning when I got up at 6:45, brought him down, opened the door, and it was just white. I couldn't see anything other than white. There was so much snow. And of course, he sees the same thing, takes a leap of faith, though. He's a little 13-pound white dog, takes a leap of faith, steps down. And it was the first time I've ever seen him kind of tumble, slide down the steps. There was so much snow. And he was just at the bottom, completely lost in the snow. He had a jacket on so I could see him, but just completely covered in snow. He comes right back up, manages to crawl his way back inside, refusing to go outside. So I got out. I was in just my bathrobe at the time, threw on my down jacket, a hat, put my bare feet,
shovel a spot
put my
out
bare
for
feet
him?
in some boots, and went out and shoveled off the stairs, shoveled off a spot for him so we could go to the bathroom. And of course that gets your heart pumping. And there was no way I was falling back.
There's no chance you were going back to sleep.
Yeah. So that was, it was a rough morning for me, but having been up for 3 hours, I do have a little bit more energy than I typically do at 10 a.m. So that's the good part of this. And I'm excited to talk about this late. As you said, week 18, a little bit different than any other week. Somebody not DM me. Somebody tweeted at me and asked me, is it even worth playing week 18 NFL? And honestly, I go back and forth kind of sometimes, but I think theoretically you should have bigger edge in week 18 because there are going to be more casuals who have no idea about any of the incentives. So theoretically, if you are paying attention to these, the incentives for teams, incentives for players, we should have more of an edge in week 18.
I think it's absolutely worthwhile. You just have to take somewhat of a preseason approach, not to every game, but to certain spots. You have to read between the lines with what coaches intend on doing with players on teams that, have locked up a spot or haven't and are deciding that they're going to test the waters with, a Jared Stidham type. Of course, that's Saturday, but yeah, for sure. I actually like this. It's weird though. There are a lot of questions, and we can only do so much right now with the uncertainty surrounding these two games, though. You know what I mean? There's not really a lot that we can say about them. We'll talk about them now in the sense that they're going to play, but I really don't even know if that's the right move.
Are you talking about the Bills and the Bengals games? So I'm actually, I've seen, on NFL, I searched for implied team totals, and they have implied team totals, at least at the Fantasy Labs website. So somebody has given these teams totals. I'm assuming they're going to play now that we know that the game the week 17 game has been postponed. I'm assuming that these games actually go on as planned, and then potentially they make up the game from week 17. Is that that's my read of the situation? You think that there's some chance that they cancel these games and play the Bills Bengals game instead, or what do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I do not. I don't have an answer for you.
I feel like it's safe. I think we can assume at this point. I guess maybe I'm wrong, but I think we can assume at this point that they are going to play these games as usual, just because they said that, you know, they're not going to make up the Monday Night Football game this week. So I think it has changed a little bit since yesterday, and that I'm more confident now. I'm fairly confident that these games are going to play. But you say there are some books that don't have lines, so maybe I'm wrong.
No, none of them do.
Okay.
Like if you go to Odd Shopper right now and you look for any of these, they do not, like, BetMGM doesn't, DraftKings doesn't, FanDuel doesn't. None of them have any lines posted for any of these games.
That does take away some confidence from me. But I don't know where Fantasy Labs gets these numbers. They have the Baltimore and Bengals game at 42.5, and they have the Bills game at also 42.5. Okay, 42.5 for both these games. Maybe they just made that up. I don't know.
Look, it could also be that they do play. I mean, I think that makes the most sense right now. But and it could just be, you know, that these books aren't comfortable. The most likely situation is, yeah, they play, but the books just you just be guessing at this point. But usually, if that's the case, they'd still put something up there like hedge lines. You know, that's what's weird. Like, we're Wednesday and there's still no lines for either of them. But like you said, we'll approach this as if they're going to play. Just keep in mind, for those of you watching maybe later on in the week, this is a Wednesday show. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. So we only know what we know.
To answer your question, Strami, instead of speculating, then why not just talk about the games that you do know are happening? We need to talk about this game. This is two of the better offenses on the slate, and two teams with incentives. So we want to talk about this game because it's kind of an important game. These two games are kind of important if they do play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That otherwise I wouldn't even be talking about this. The Bengals and the Bills both have top 4 top stack probabilities in our top stack tool right now. Of course, that can change, but, you know, meaningful games in week 18, divisional games, it still matters. It still matters, because if we don't talk about it at all, if you were to just take these out of the slate, now you have an entirely different slate that you're working with. It's 11 games. You're removing 4 teams. You're removing 2 of the best, as Neil mentioned, 2 of the best, most high-powered offenses in football. Yeah, it makes a difference. But let's dive into this. Very happy to have you guys. Justin said Bills are having meetings and holding walkthroughs for what it's worth. Yeah, hey, any information at this point is good information for sure.
Yeah.
But and Helms, yeah, the slate, if we don't at least talk about it, we're doing you guys a massive disservice. But let's move on. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below if you're listening after the fact or watching. If you're in podcast, I had people listening on Stitcher the other day, didn't even know that still existed. So whether it's Stitcher or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're at, hit us up, leave a rating, review, subscribe to it. It goes a long way for us. I promise you. Otherwise, I would not ask. But let's talk about running backs. Let's dive straight into this one and save any more pleasantries here. So I just absolutely love the running back position this week. And I don't think you can say that for quarterback, which we'll talk about when we get to top stacks and dig into that towards the end of the show. Oh, real quick, before we do, Millie Maker winner, Neil, single entry, chopped it with someone else who only had 3 entries. The big Millie, it was like the $2,100 Millie. Utica won that with a very similar lineup. He had maxed it, and pretty much everyone up top had maxed it. But in the smaller, lower entry, the $20 Millie, it was Tom Brady, Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Hunter Henry, Darren Waller, and the Saints. And what was crazy to me was that Hunter Henry and Darren Waller, right? So you're running 2 tight ends, not like a Kittle. There was, no Kelsey or anything like that, but Hunter Henry and Darren Waller. And this lineup was duped to win the Millie in week 17.
There were so many low-owned players in the lineup. I was pretty shocked to see that it was duped also. Yeah, I mean, it was a very solid lineup. It was well correlated. I had Tom Brady with both Evans and Godwin. I'm trying to pull it up here. I can't. I was listening and I don't remember exactly what the lineup is, but it wasn't really a stack that I considered much. Okay, Wasn't a stack that I was strongly considering. I briefly thought about it on Sunday. I was like, is that kind of a miss to not consider this Tampa stack? But there were other stacks that I like so much better that I did not end up playing any Tampa stacks, which obviously was a miss in retrospect. But yeah, it's very solid lineup. Pretty interesting to have the 2 tight end build. I definitely was not considering playing Darren Waller against the Niners, which
me neither.
Honestly, maybe kind of a miss too, just because, he has been an alpha at times in his career. Even this year, I think he's had a couple pretty good games. I just didn't want to play him in that matchup. But in a different matchup at a low price tag, low ownership, I definitely would have been considering him. But against the Niners, I was like, it's just a bridge too far for me. And it's all he went completely off. He had a decent game, but it wasn't those tight ends that really, separated him from the field.
Yeah, and he only had 3 receptions. He just,
yeah,
all of them were long receptions. All of them were 20+ yard receptions, I think. So
yeah,
with a touchdown, 72 yards and a touchdown. Hey, solid lineup. I can't believe that was duped. That's pretty crazy. But the you needed the Tampa Bay stack to win. Brady 3%. Godwin 10, Mike Evans went off for 6 at 6% ownership. And then the pieces kind of filled themselves in after that one. Let's talk running backs though. I love the mid-range this week. Of course, we're going to get into McCaffrey and Eckler, who we talked about as a pivot. I think it was Matt Savoca was saying how great of a pivot he was last week off of McCaffrey. And they basically finished with the same score, except one of them was way higher owned than the other. But man, the mid-range, like Kenneth Walker, has a shot at getting to 1,000 yards here, going up against the Rams. They're 6.5-point favorites. They need to win. Packers need to lose for Seattle to clinch a postseason berth. Najee Harris at 16% against a highly inferior Cleveland defense. Cam Akers at 11%. He has looked very good lately. Tyler Algier at 11%. Tough matchup. They were 7.5-point favorites. Now 4-point favorites after Todd Bowles and Brady both suggested that the starters would probably play at least some of this game. There's a lot of spots in the mid-range. I didn't even mention Dalvin Cook is another one of those guys. I really love whether it's 6K all the way up to the top this week. I think your options are almost unlimited.
Let me throw one thing, just because it's week 18. I want to throw this out to you and the chat. If anybody has any incentives that they're aware of at the position, feel free to throw that in chat, because it's really hard to track all player incentives, not just from a contract standpoint, but from like a chasing records standpoint or chasing 1,000 yards, that kind of thing standpoint. So if anybody does have any incentives that they're aware of that you want to talk about, feel free to bring them up in chat, because that is, an additional wrinkle for everything in week 18, on top of the usual stuff we talk about, the boom bust matchups, that kind of stuff. Incentives are important here. I'm not really aware of any important incentives for running backs. I know Jamal Williams needs to get to 1,000 yards, but he's already at 994, so that's not really all that relevant to us. Samaje Perine will get $100,000 bonus if he gets 500 rushing yards, but he's only at 376, so I don't really think that's all that relevant to us. I'm not really aware of any big running back incentives, so I'll move on to talking about it from just from a boom bust and matchups perspective. Tyler Algier, we can start there. Tyler Algier looks great against a Bucs defense that probably not going all out here. The Bucs don't really have anything to play for. Of course, they're saying that they're planning on playing some. They need to get going as a team, but they have an 18.25 implied team total against the Falcons of all teams. I don't really think the Bucs are going to be playing all their starters. So Tyler Algier against backup Bucs defensive players, it's a great spot. The Falcons have a 22.25 implied team total. They of course have nothing to play for, but probably want to, they've been playing Tyler Algier more and more. Makes sense. He's a rookie. You want to see what you have in your rookie running back. So I think Tyler Algier looks like a great play here. And of course, we've got him at 11% projected ownership with a 27% chance of being optimal. Looks great from that perspective as well. Alvin Kamara looks pretty great. Again, 11% projected ownership, 21% chance of being optimal. The Saints are eliminated from contention. Actually, that's the whole game is meaningless. Do you have any concern there with that game? The Panthers and Saints being meaningless for both teams. We've got the Saints with a 22.5 implied team total. Do you think there's any chance that they just don't really give Alvin Kamara much run just because what's the point?
It's possible. Honestly, I just the simplest play for me is just not to go to a lot of Alvin Kamara regardless. He's been a colossal disappointment this season. He really has. And at this stage of the game, you're playing for Kamara to have a big output, but we have not seen that since week 8. He has 130 fantasy point game this season. He has, how about this? He has 2 games of 20 fantasy points all year long. So no, it wouldn't shock me at all if they limit him a little bit. You also have Taysom Hill, who vultures. Like, if it's a meaningful game, sure, but they were eliminated last week. He's still 16 carries in a game that they led throughout. I have no real interest in Alvin Kamara this week if he's going to be double digit owned. I can see why you might want to get there, but truthfully, looking at the other guys at similar ownership, I'd rather go Kenneth Walker here. He's coming off a 23 carry game. There is no Taysom Hill. There is nobody that's getting opportunities to vulture him at the goal line. I'd probably, and this may sound insane, I think I'd rather go with Cam Akers here. His workload right now is through the roof. And it's not like Alvin Kamara has been getting a boatload of pass catching work. If that was the case, then we could reconsider this and I'd recalibrate based on all of that. He has 10 targets combined over the last month of football, over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the only reason I bring up Alvin Kamara is because he does look great in the boom bust tool, 11% projected ownership, 21% chance to be an optimal. But I think it's going to be adjusted throughout the week as we, factor in, as we get more news and understand teams' motivations a little bit better. The boom bust tool is going to continue to be updated. Currently, yeah, Alvin Kamara looks great. Absolutely with you on Kenneth Walker, though. I mean, Seattle does have incentive. It's a must-win game for Seattle. We have Kenneth Walker at 14% projected ownership, 20% chance of being optimal. Playing against the Rams, who are not great, 24th against the rush this year. They're, of course, eliminated from playoff contention. It's a great spot for Kenneth Walker. He's probably one of the safer options on the board at running back and clearly has upside as well. Cam Akers, yeah, I don't know. He was kind of a joke most of the year. He was somebody that was just like the punchline. Like Cam Akers was rushing 3 yards per carry. That was like a great rush for Cam Akers. He's looking a lot better lately. He's actually they've been giving him the ball more and he's actually performing pretty well. And the Rams are eliminated from playoff contention, but they haven't really had much to play for recently anyway. They've been going to Cam Akers a lot. It's a great spot against the Seahawks, who are 24th against the rush. I think I read that wrong before. The Rams are 13th against the rush in terms of DVOA. Seahawks are 24th against the rushing teams in terms of DVOA.
They stink against the run.
Yeah. Cam Akers does honestly feel relatively safe. Like he's probably going to at least get volume here. And it's a great spot against the Seahawks. So I think I'm kind of with you on Cam Akers. He's still not somebody who breaks off 50-yard runs, that kind of stuff. So kind of he's would you call him a decimal back?
In a sense, yeah, because he's not super involved in the passing game, but neither is Kamara right now. And I'm not going back to that to prove any point other than the reason we love playing Kamara is because of his pass catching upside. Cam Akers has 2 fewer targets over the last 4 games than he does. So Akers has played 75+% of snaps in 3 straight games now. He's just going to be on the field a ton. And do I think he's a lock? No, absolutely not. Because like you said, if he doesn't find the end zone, Cam Akers is going to, very likely disappoint you. But same thing for Alvin Kamara, same thing for a lot of these guys. And I think Najee Harris is a strong option as well. Like he's been disappointing all season long. He needs 46 yards to get to that 1,000-yard mark, but he's at least somebody that is going to be on the field a ton. And once again, he's going to get very likely 20+ carries in what's likely a low scoring game. I know that Deshaun Watson threw 3 touchdowns last week, but Carson Wentz threw 3 interceptions. Watson only threw the ball 18 times. Pittsburgh is at home. I believe they still have an outside shot of making the playoffs as well. So I like him here quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on Najee as well. The Steelers, it's a must-win game for the Steelers. They do need help, but I think that at the time the game plays, they're still going to be live to make the playoffs. They're playing against the Browns defense, ranked 29th in terms of rush DVOA. Najee, similar to Cam Akers, you and Ben talked about this yesterday. Both of these guys I thought were dust, halfway through the year, and they've really come on the second half of the year. Yeah. Najee has been playing great. I think he had his best game of the year last week. Now he's got the Browns defense ranked 29th in rush DVOA in a must-win game, in a week when not a lot of teams have must-win games. I like Najee as well. He feels like one of the safer options at running back. He's going to have volume at the very least. got a nice price tag. It's a nice matchup. I'm with you. It's a great spot for Najee. I don't know, Christian McCaffrey, assuming the Vikings win, the Niners will, if I'm remembering this correctly, they need the Vikings to win for the Niners to have something to play for.
Wait, who are you talking about? The Vikings?
For Christian McCaffrey. So it's if the Vikings win, then the Niners have to win to keep the number 2 seed. If the Vikings lose, then the Niners have the number 2 seed locked up, I believe, and would have nothing to play for. So Christian McCaffrey, a little bit risky. I am assuming, and I know you and Ben talked about this as well, I'm assuming that the Vikings are going to play to win here. They're going to play all out until the game is out of hand, which is true any week. So I'm treating the Vikings like they are a full go because they do have something to play for. Obviously, they're relying on the Cardinals to win in a game where they are underdogs by 14 points. So pretty unlikely, but I think generally NFL teams are going to, if they have something on the line, they're going to go all out. And at the time the Vikings play, because they play before the Niners, I'm assuming the Vikings are going to be all out. I know you were talking about maybe having some interest in Alexander Madison. I guess if, we'll have to see what the coach comes out and says, but so far he has been saying that they're planning to play this, they're planning to play to win this week, which would be my assumption. So
yeah, he said they are. They can't fall any further than the 3. They can't go higher than the 2.
Right.
But, and also Justin Fields might not play. Eberflus has been real, wishy-washy on whether or not he's going to play. And no one's talking about the fact though, that the 3 seed gets to play the Giants in the wild card round.
Right.
I don't know. I'd rather play the Giants than either the Lions, who just smoked the Vikings and took them down to the final drive earlier this season, or it was like 28-24. The Packers, who are kind of surging right now, or the Seahawks. I mean, I guess sure the Seahawks, but the Lions look like a pretty damn good matchup if you finish in the 3 seeds. So it's a weird spot for me. If you're paying up for Justin Jefferson at that price, you would very much like him to be the highest. You would like him to play the entirety of the game. But yeah, O'Connell's saying they're going to play. Does that mean they play the whole game? I don't know. What if Fields sits and they go up by 24 or in the first half? Maybe, they do enough to get there through 3 quarters, but I still have some reservations about this team, and it sucks because the Chicago Bears defense is downright dreadful.
Yeah. So as Christy says, so you're right. Like I'm with you that the Giants are the team that I'd like to play the most in the first round. Actually had this conversation a week or 2 ago with some of my friends ranking all the teams for the Vikings, and the Giants pretty clearly the number 1 team that I'd like the Vikings to face. I shouldn't say pretty clearly, but I rank them as the number 1 opponent I'd like the Vikings to face in the first round of the playoffs. However, the number 2 seed will get we'll get home field advantage the following week. So, I think you still prefer to have the 2 seed because you're not just trying to win, the first round of the playoffs. Obviously every team's goal is to make it all the way through to the Super Bowl. So I think that they probably would still rather have the 2 seed, even though it's a juicier matchup against the Giants. So I don't know. It is a little bit tough, but I'm assuming that they are going to be playing to win in this game. And I'm going to be treating them. And of course, it's risky. I know that, but it's all kind of ownership dependent as well. And we don't have a ton of ownership on the Vikings guys. I guess we've got 13% on Dalvin Cook. So yeah, I guess maybe the field, we're expecting the field to play it straight up. And if the field does play it straight up, then, maybe there's additional risk. Maybe you should factor that in a little bit more. But we've got Dalvin Cook at 13% projected ownership, 14% chance to be an optimal. Of course, I started this conversation by saying, I think Christian McCaffrey probably will have something to play for in this game because the Niners are, they're going to want that number 2 seed. We've got Christian McCaffrey at 21% projected ownership, 19% chance to be an optimal. It's of course about as good of a matchup as you can get against the Cardinals. That's a great spot for the Niners for Christian McCaffrey, but I don't know. It's hard to say how late in the game they are going to be playing starters. They're obviously going to want to win the game to keep that number 2 seed, assuming the Vikings win. If the Vikings lose, I don't think the Niners have nothing to play for. Like then you definitely can't play Christian McCaffrey, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. And I do. And the Vikings play what? A 1 o'clock game?
Yeah. The Vikings play 1 o'clock. Yeah. The Niners play later.
So that certainly would make a difference. I don't think the Vikings lose, but who knows at this point. Chris D, look, that's not lost on me that they would get the 2 seed and that you'd like to get the 2 seed in home field advantage, but you're not getting a bye. You're not getting home field advantage throughout necessarily. Also, what you're not baking into that analysis is they still need, it's not a win and get the 2. It's win and San Francisco still needs to lose as 14-point home favorites.
Yeah.
You got injuries on the Vikings offensive line. All I'm saying is I'm not as convinced as everybody else that like they go out there and they play all 4 quarters.
And I think that's a reasonable concern to have. Like I'm not saying it's not a reasonable concern. That's why for me it kind of comes down to what's the field going to do? Like, is the field going to overreact to the fact that the Vikings don't necessarily have that much to play for, or is the field going to not react at all? And it actually currently in our ownership kind of looks like the field is not reacting to the potential that Vikings won't play their starters the whole game, in which case maybe you want to factor it in a little bit more. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, what do you think the Vikings would be if because it opened, it's moved towards the Vikings. It opened at 2.5. It's at 5.5 now since the Kevin O'Connell presser yesterday.
Yeah. And I think Vegas is expecting the Vikings to be going all out. So I think 25.5 is Vegas is projecting it as though the Vikings are playing to win the game.
Here's the caveat. The same news earlier in the week that moved this line that also contributed to moving this line is that Eberflus, prior to his most recent presser, said that Justin Fields, if he's healthy, he's definitely going to play. He was adamant about it. And now he's talking about, after Fields took 7 sacks and got banged up last week, now he's talking about we'll see. That's another aspect of it. So I think that's probably has a whole lot to do with this as well. If Justin Fields isn't out there, now he needs 64 yards to break the single season rushing record for a quarterback. But how much does that matter in week 18, a 17-game season? A clear asterisk next to it. This is one we got to pay very close attention to throughout the week, because if Fields is healthy and there's no limitations, and O'Connell's like, no, our guys they're gonna play no matter. Then this becomes probably one of the best fantasy games on the entire slate.
Also, we should add with Justin Fields, he has less incentive because he's just going to smash it next year anyway, right? No matter what he does, like he hasn't been running that much. He's only been. I
don't agree with that at all.
You don't think he's going to smash it next year?
No, because I'm not. They have to get him pass catchers. He doesn't have any pass catchers right now.
Okay.
Like if you got this guy, you can't take this year's approach into 2023, or else Justin Fields ends up, retiring very early.
Yeah, and that's a good point. They also haven't been winning with this approach. So, maybe that's a good point that they're not going to try to force it. It feels like they've been more competitive since they realized about halfway through the year, like we need to use this guy's running abilities. But you're right. Maybe if they go out and get some pass catchers, they're going to switch up the game plan a little bit, because it does add some injury risk when your quarterback is out there running as much as Justin Fields does. So maybe not. I guess I'm trying to project what he's done like the second half of this year onto a full season. If he did that, he would absolutely crush the rushing record. But
yeah, he's amazing.
You're right. They probably don't take the same approach. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But
if they do, everybody should be fired. Like if they run him out there with no viable pass catchers and say go to work, it's could be in trouble.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't really like a lot of lower owned running backs this week. Maybe you do. The only one that I really see that might be viable, Latavius Murray. I worry about the Eagles here, 14-point favorites. Brian Dable's been tight-lipped on whether or not he's going to sit his starters, but there's a 14-point spread between the Eagles and Giants. It suggests that would be the case. Of course, as always, pay close attention to this stuff. If there's one position the Eagles can say, hey, we'll give guys some rest, it's just run a 3-man committee in the backfield against potentially the Giants backups. That worries me a little bit about Miles Sanders this week.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair concern. I'm probably not playing Miles Sanders for that exact reason. It's just not worth the risk here. I'm looking at Zach Moss, looks really good in our tools. It's a meaningless game for both the Colts and the Texans. But they've been giving Zach Moss plenty of run. It's a great spot against the Texans defense, ranked 26th against the rush. Zach Moss, fairly inexpensive. What's he at? He's at 5,200. We've got him projected for 8% ownership with an 18% chance of being optimal. So hard not to have interest in Zach Moss when you see that kind of positive leverage. I brought up the Vikings to talk about Christian McCaffrey and whether he is going to be playing a full go on Sunday, but I actually do have some interest in Dalvin Cook as well, just because it is such a juicy matchup with the Bears. If you do treat this game like it's just a regular game, like the Vikings are trying to win it, 7,300 Dalvin Cook against the Bears defense that is terrible, in all aspects of the defense. They are 30th in terms of rush DVOA. It's a great spot for Dalvin Cook as well. Vikings have a 25.5 implied team total. So I would add that I do like Dalvin Cook. But yeah, as far as like truly contrarian options, I mean, we've been saying it all year that typically running back is a spot where you're generally more willing to eat the chalk. And I agree with you. I think that's probably the case again this week. There's not a lot of truly contrarian options that really stand out to me as guys I want to play. The Cowboys, it's a must-win game. So I guess Zeke at 6,300 looks okay. We've got him projected for 3.5% ownership, 4.3% chance to be an optimal. We've got Pollard projected for 2.3% ownership, 2.2% chance to be an optimal. So negative leverage there, but the Cowboys running backs, I would say, are relatively safe just because it's a must-win game for the Cowboys. So maybe I'll go to them. Commanders, pretty good against the rush, 10th against the rush in terms of DVOA. Of course, they've been eliminated from the playoffs. I don't know if they play all of their starters. They also have no real incentive to sit them either, I suppose, because, their season's over after this game. But kind of have some interest in those Cowboys running backs who are fairly contrarian.
Okay. Yeah, there's just not a lot down there this week. We had a question: how do you feel about Khalil Herbert? I want to obviously see what happens here and what players are going to be out there. He's returned. He's been back from the IR for 2 weeks now. Do they try to get him more work? I'm not necessarily sure why they would in a spot like that. They were also down by 1,000 points last week, and he was only targeted twice. He wasn't targeted a single time. I'd probably stay away from this backfield here for Chicago. Maybe some shots on David Montgomery, but only because this defense is so bad. I think you have to wait on Justin Fields here before we have any clarity.
Yeah, all right. It's a little bit tough.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. Could be a great game, though. Could be a really good game. Let's talk about wide receivers. Before we do, though, you guys already know. I know a ton of you have signed up at Prize Picks already. So this isn't for you. This is for anybody who hasn't signed up at Prize Picks, wants to take advantage of an incredible site. First match deposit bonus up to $100. The ability to really sustain and build a big bankroll over there and get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum in the process. $120 value. All of our tools, everything included across the board for football, basketball, hockey, MMA, PGA's back. Everything, all of those sports, every tool that we have, including the lineup generator for football and basketball. And you can get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on if you're looking to do that. All you got to do is use the link in the description or the one in the pin in the chat that Mike can throw in there right now. Already did. Look at that. Good stuff, Mike. You're getting a free month of everything. You're getting a $100 first match deposit bonus. And over at Prize Picks, it's not like we're promoting a bad site just to get you to take advantage. No, it's an awesome site. They're blowing up right now. You're making lineups with player props. There's no juice on either side, over or the under. Whether you want to do 6 players in a lineup, you hit all 6, you 25x. You could do 5 where you 10x if you hit all 5, but if you hit 4, you still 2x, unlike a traditional parlay where you just lose everything. You even make money back if you hit 3 of 5. Million different ways to play it here. So many different formats. You can do the power play if you're a little more on the riskier side. And you can mix as many sports as you want into these. So if you know basketball and you know football as well, maybe you know hockey on top of that, you can throw them all into the same lineup. It doesn't all have to be one sport. Awesome site to take advantage of, to check out if you haven't done so yet. Use that link. Get your $100 first match deposit bonus. Then we'll hit you up and say, hey, you got a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. All of our stuff. If you wanted to get your foot in the door, here's the best opportunity to do so if Prize Picks is available to you. So check it out. Links in the description. And it's in chat. All right, wide receivers here. Man, Justin Jefferson, super expensive. He's getting on. We're obviously projecting him now as if he's going to play. Jamar Chase, assuming that game gets underway and plays, he's at 15. So a lot of these high-priced guys are all pulling the highest ownership, including Stephon Diggs of the Bills, and then CeeDee Lamb, both of them coming in at double digits as well.
Yeah, as I was saying about the Vikings, I was saying, maybe the field is going to overreact to the Vikings, not having a huge incentive here. And if the field overreacts, then I'm going to jam them in. And from what we're seeing in our projected ownership right now, that's not the case. The field is playing it straight up. We've got Jefferson projected for 18% ownership, 11% chance to be an optimal. So a little bit disappointing for me that I can't just jam all of my Vikings at low ownership this week. But I still think that Justin Jefferson is certainly in play, even though he has negative leverage. It's such a great spot against the Bears defense that I'm still interested in Justin Jefferson, despite the negative leverage. As far as the high end goes, he's probably my favorite. Let me actually sort by salary, see if there's somebody else who will jump out to me. I mean, Tyreek Hill certainly in play. Jamar Chase. The Bengals have something to play for, but also negative leverage there. 15% projected ownership, 7.4% chance to be an optimal. So not seeing anybody who like jumps off the page as great positive leverage among the expensive receivers, but plenty of guys who are in play. Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. Do we know who's going to be starting at quarterback for the Dolphins this week?
Well, we know Tua is not, and we know that Teddy Bridgewater has a dislocated pinky finger. So
I don't know Mike Glennon to the practice squad.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater, who is perfectly fine in relief. I think there's little reason to be overly concerned about that, or it's going to be Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, that's
because he played last game after Teddy Bridgewater went out.
Yeah, I think so. So the latest that I have read, and I don't know who this is coming from, but I've seen speculation. Okay, so the latest update is that Teddy Bridgewater is uncertain for this week. So I guess we don't really know if Teddy plays. If Teddy Bridgewater does play, then I will have some interest in Tyreek Hill. Man, it's harder to play him if we have Skylar Thompson starting at quarterback or Mike Glennon. I don't know. I'd have less interest in that scenario, especially against this Jets defense. It's not a great spot for Tyreek Hill anyway. The only reason, I mean, he's Tyreek Hill. We know we can do it against anybody, even against the Jets. Tyreek Hill could certainly have a big game, but definitely less likely if you're starting Skylar Thompson than Teddy Bridgewater. Although Teddy hasn't been all that great either recently, so that's been a little bit disappointing. So I don't know, it's a little bit thin, a little bit tough for me to get to Tyreek Hill, but then again, he is the one of the more expensive guys who actually has positive leverage. 5.6% projected ownership, 6.7% chance to be an optimal, so some reason to play him. The Bills, again, they're playing to win this game. Stephon Diggs projected for 11% ownership, 7.8% chance to be an optimal. I'll have some interest in Stephon Diggs. I always have some interest in Stephon Diggs. The Bills have a 25 implied team total, at least from what I've seen. Apparently, it's not actually listed on many books, so maybe that's not right. But Patriots defense, pretty tough. It's a must-win game for both of these teams. They're going to be, battling all out. I don't know that it matters as much for the Bills offense as it would for some other offenses. That the Patriots are second in terms of pass DVOA. So one of the tougher matchups you can have. But again, the Bills still have a 25 implied team total, and Stephon Diggs still pretty clearly their alpha. So I will have some interest in Stephon Diggs. I don't know that I want to get to Devontae Smith at all. Now that he's up at 7,500, got some negative leverage there. I think are you going to go into any AJ Brown this weekend?
I certainly think you can. It's an odd game because one, we don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to look like in his return with a sprained throwing shoulder. Although he looked fine at the end of that Bears game, tossing one for like 70 yards to AJ Brown. And then he was absent the 2 weeks after that, 2 of their only 3 losses on the season. I don't know. He's been off for 2 weeks. That can change things a lot. But yeah, AJ Brown, I still think, if the ownership is coming in at a relatively low number, nothing crazy, I can't imagine that I don't want to have some of him here against this Giants secondary. I mean, the Eagles just carved them up last time they played. Of course, this is it doesn't mean much, but 8% right now at AJ Brown. I have some serious interest there. And you know what? Devontae Smith is very expensive. Their price tags are only $500 separated now, but in large field tournaments, if Devontae Smith comes in at 5% in a spot like this, that might be worth taking a look at as well, just because he goes potentially very not even under owned, because I don't think he should be popular at this price point, but just low owned.
We know that he has the ability to go completely off. He's been really consistent recently too. Devontae Smith has just been great. So maybe I'm wrong to say I have no interest there. The price tag looks a little bit too much, but sometimes that'll drive the field away from a player like Devontae Smith. I think I prefer AJ Brown, but actually I'm becoming more and more convinced that maybe I do want to play some of this Eagles staff because they if they win the game, they lock up the number 1 seed. So they do have incentive to try to win this game. They wouldn't play Jalen Hurts if they didn't have incentive to try to win this game. So in a game that they're trying to win against this Giants defense, I mean, hard not to have some interest actually in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm actually becoming more and more interested. I think that AJ Brown might be my favorite of the high-end receivers, and Devontae Smith, the more I think about it, I'm retracting my statement that I don't have interest in Devontae Smith at 7,500. I'm more thinking now against this defense in a game they're trying to win with Jalen Hurts back. I think I actually do have some interest in Devontae Smith.
Yeah. So over the last 5 weeks, so back since week 13, and of course 2 of these games came with Gardner Minshew. Since week 13, over the last 5 weeks, Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1, AJ Brown is the wide receiver 2, and I'm talking in the entire league. Devontae Smith is the wide receiver 3. So
no way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They have coexisted quite well. This is a guy who we were wondering if he was going to get to 1,000 yards on the season and if he would need week 18 to get there. He has 100+ yards in 4 of his last 5. So, he is putting up big games. He's good after the catch. He's awesome for a small player on contested balls. He can high point anything. Yeah. I think he's expensive, but you look at the recent salary. Shit, man, if he was $6,000 like he was in week 12, he might be the highest owned player on the slate, or at least one of them.
Yeah. You've talked me into it. I have some interest there. I think we can go to this Eagle stack, and obviously Jalen Hurts. Do you think Jalen Hurts will be running at all, though? I guess that's my concern with doing the full stack, because he might not be risking with the run. Yeah,
I don't know. If he doesn't, maybe he just lights up the Giants secondary.
Right. Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
So maybe it makes the double stack more interesting, actually. If Jalen Hurts isn't going to be running, he's just going to be throwing to Smith and AJ Brown, and they can certainly light up this Giants defense through the air. Yeah, maybe it's because usually I only force in the single stack with Jalen Hurts. Maybe this is a week where you can consider the double stack.
I don't think it's crazy. I really don't. The only issue is it's an expensive stack. It's
very expensive. It's with Devontae up to 7,500 now. Yeah.
It's going to be tough. Maybe you look to Goddard in some of those spots. We'll see. But I think we both agree that all of Philly, while there are some question marks there, they still need – here's where I don't want to overthink things too much, right? They still need to win this game. Like this is as an important game to the Eagles as it is for anyone else in the league this year, albeit, are saved for maybe a couple teams that like don't make the playoffs if they lose this, but they also need help. Philly controls their own destiny here. It's a win and get the number 1 with a first round bye and rest up players further like Lane Johnson, like Jalen Hurts, like a lot of these guys who are playing banged up. It's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It's a big spot. They need to come out here and win. Don't you think we get in a little bit of trouble here if we start saying, because I understand the thinking, but I think we get in a little bit of trouble if we start going, I don't know if I want to play these guys because maybe they don't play in the 4th quarter or something like that. Then Who the hell are we playing?
Right. And with most of, I mean, like as we're talking about with the Vikings, like I said, I think they're probably going to play until, and I think we generally agree on this. They're probably going to play their starters until the game is out of hand, but that's true every week. Maybe you don't agree with that, but I think that's an example that I can give is the Vikings. I'm like, yeah, well, they're a little more likely to pull their starters in this game. But then I'm like, no, they're not going to pull the starters until the game is out of hand, which is true every week. So
they've already done it twice this season against the Cowboys and the Packers, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think we can generally, if teams have some incentive to play, if they have something that they're playing for, I'm playing it straight up. I'm going to be playing those guys. So I think the Eagles look great here. I think the Vikings also is a team that I'm going to still be targeting. And Adam Thielen actually coming in at 3.7% projected ownership with a 7.9% chance of being optimal, according to our Sims. 5,000. I have some interest in Adam Thielen against this Bears defense as well. If you don't want to pay all the way out for Justin Jefferson and want to play some Viking against this Bears defense, I think Adam Thielen is actually in play as well. Jacoby Myers looks pretty great. That surprises me kind of against the Bills defense. 10.6% projected ownership, 14.2% chance to be an optimal. He's 5,100, so obviously the price tag is pretty nice on Jacoby Myers, but surprised to see him optimal 14% of the time against this Bills defense.
It is a little bit weird. There's no doubt about that, but I guess just a discounted price point, big target share. I don't hate him. I think Drake London could be viable, and especially if we'll see what Tampa does with these starters.
Yeah.
London's going to get a lot of opportunities. We do know that much, in the games that Desmond Ritter's essentially just out there functioning as a body to facilitate the rushing game at this point. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But he has looked at Drake London a lot. Drake London's sub 5K. That doesn't bother me. Garrett Wilson against Miami. That was a horrible performance from Mike White last week, but against Miami, I like it. Jets are coming into play spoiler here though, right? So Miami still has something to play for. I think the Jets could get this win. It wouldn't shock me at all. And then if you're just looking at the lower owned guys, I'm actually not entirely opposed to getting to a cheap Brandon Cooks against the Colts. I mean, they're pretty lifeless right now. 3-point spread in that game should be very low scoring, but in some tournaments, I might look there. Rashid Shaheed's 2%. Corey Davis at 3,500 is 3%. I don't think there's a ton of value out there right now. So just kind of throwing some guys that we have bottomed out from an ownership perspective. They're not exciting, but I think you're going to be hard pressed to find any really great value right now. I think some will definitely pop up throughout the week, but as it stands on a Wednesday afternoon, we don't have a whole lot to go with.
Yeah. So just speaking about the Jets reminded me of my trauma from Sunday. I played a lot of Michael Carter. I really thought after the previous game with Zonovan Knight looking really bad and with Mike White in at quarterback, I was like, they're going to play more Michael Carter. He's going to get 10 targets in this game. And then of course he had 1 carry and 3 targets in the game, was barely involved in the offense. So that was pretty disappointing, but I do still have interest in Mike White. I think you can go back to this Jet stack against the Dolphins defense that is 25th against the pass. I think the Jets are going to be trying to win this game, as you said, play spoilers. So I think maybe you can go to Garrett Wilson again. You could also consider Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, the secondary, tertiary options for the Jets against this Dolphins defense. Maybe Mike White isn't, as Ben said yesterday, maybe he's not as good as we were hoping he was at one point, but still probably better than Zach Wilson. So I'll take it. One other team that I want to throw out there is the Steelers in a must-win game. Both Deontay Johnson and George Pickens actually look pretty great in the boom bust tool. We've got Johnson at 5.4% projected ownership with 11.2% chance to be an optimal. George Pickens at 1.4% projected ownership with a 6.5% chance to be an optimal. Again, this is one of those games the Steelers need to win. They're going to be out there playing to win. They're playing against the Browns, who are 13th in terms of pass DVOA. They're worse against the rush, but still certainly a spot where the Steelers could put up a lot of points. Do you have any interest in the Steelers this weekend?
Najee Harris specifically.
Yeah.
I don't hate DeAndre Smith though. But specifically it's going to be Najee Harris for me, just because I think this should be one of those games where they look to grind Cleveland down on the ground and let their defense do a lot of the work here. Of course, it's not like if you're Kenny Pickett, it's not like you aren't going to throw, obviously, but Cleveland, very, very porous run defense. Their secondary has been bolstered recently. Early in the year, they were horrible. They're 13th now in pass defense DVOA, and they continue to show some real improvement there. So I think they're one of the premier run funnel defenses in the league. So my interest wanes a little bit with Pittsburgh pass catchers, but they're not expensive. It's an important game for them. Divisional game, probably low scoring. I'd likely lean most to the running game here.
Yeah, I think I prefer the running. I prefer Najee. I'm with you there. I think he's probably my favorite of the Pittsburgh guys, but just seeing that positive leverage, just because they're coming in low owned, I do have some interest in the Pittsburgh receivers. I also, somebody in chat just mentioned Tyler Lockett, and I'm looking at our tools. I mean, it's a must-win game for Seattle. Tyler Lockett, we're projected for 5.4% projected ownership, 13.8% chance to be an optimal. The price tag has come up. He's up to 6,400 now. He had been like in the 5,000s for much of the season, if I'm remembering correctly. So Tyler Lockett does actually look pretty great. Maybe somebody I'll consider as well.
I like him too. I like Tyler Lockett. And yes, Mitchell, I agree. Everyone is better than Zach Wilson at this point.
Yeah, true.
No denying that. And somebody asked, can the 49ers lock up a 1? It was Mitchell, actually. They can, but they need to win. They need the Eagles to lose. It's not impossible, right? It's certainly not impossible, but I wouldn't look at that. I wouldn't even think about that. This team, they're both 4:00 games. Both of these teams are going to be playing to win. There's no real lack of incentive for San Francisco here.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about tight ends. Before we do though, hit that thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, we have recently extended the free trial for football to 5 days. And the reason for this is I went back to everyone. I say, hey, listen, 3 days doesn't help anyone on a Wednesday, you know, it doesn't help anybody on a Tuesday when you're watching the strategy show. 5 days will get you a lot. Plus, depending on when you sign up, it's like it turns into 6 days because if you're signing up at a certain time, I don't know, but it's 5 days. So you're getting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, getting all the tools, right, to prep your lineups. You're also getting the Saturday games. You're getting so if you were to take advantage of this now, you're getting the Saturday games. You're getting, there's 2 of them this week. You're getting the Sunday games. And since there isn't a Monday game, at least not that we know of right now, guess what? That's pretty sweet because you're getting the showdown slate for Sunday night as well. So if you use the 5 days today, if the link is in the description, Mike just threw it in the chat. That's Bet Pro, Mike. Or that might not have been you. Put the NFL one in there. So 5 days. So you're Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You're getting every single game on this slate. You're getting every slate for the week as well. So Saturday, you're getting both showdown, all of our showdown content, all of our showdown tools, the top single game plays tool, the ownership, the projections, all our simulation tools that Neil references all the time on the showdowns. You're getting the main slate for Sunday, afternoon slate tools, showdown, all of that. So no better time to take advantage of it. Sign up today, completely free, no strings attached whatsoever. If you hate it, you can bounce, no strings attached whatsoever. And then get all of that prep in and then have all the tools updated too for Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, we want you guys to check it out. And 3 days isn't enough to get the full experience. You get 5 days, you can really, really exploit these tools, figure out how to use them, prior to Saturday and Sunday, fine tune your process, and then hopefully stick around and become part of the community. So 5 days of NFL Stokastic Plus Platinum, totally free. Link in the description and down there in the chat in the chat. All right. So tight ends here. Kind of ugly if you think about it. I mean, you have Lamar Jackson status still pending, but Mark Andrews getting 16%, Hawkinson at 8%, Kittle at 8%, Tyler Higbee at 8%. No one's really pulling away with it right now, and I think that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, man, George Kittle has been an absolute smash every game with Brock Purdy. So sort of surprised that we only have him at 7.5% ownership. We have George Kittle optimal 12.2% of the time. That price tag has come up. He's up at 6,000 now. So the price is up there, but he looks great. TJ Hawkinson, once again, against his Bears defense, he's only 5,700, projected for 8% ownership, 12.5% chance to be an optimal. He looks great. Mark Andrews, 15.8% ownership, 19.9% chance to be an optimal. Looks like all of these mid-range guys are looking pretty great here. We don't have Kelsey on the slate. So these are actually the high end of this particular slate are the guys that I have the most interest in. I look at actually the most expensive tight ends, just going down the list. The 4 most expensive are probably the tight ends I have the most interest in. I guess you can throw Dalton Schultz in there as well, but we've got George Kittle is 6,000, looks great. TJ Hawkinson, 5,700 against the Bears, looks great. Mark Andrews, 5,400. According to the tools, 15.8% projected ownership, 19.9% chance to be an optimal. A lot of interest there. And then Dallas Goedert, as we talked about, you could throw him in instead of one of the receivers into your Eagles mix, and it becomes a little bit more reasonable from a price standpoint. 6.7% projected ownership on Goddard, 18.2% chance to be an optimal. He actually looks pretty phenomenal there with those numbers. And then Dalton Schultz, I would throw in there as well at 6.3% projected ownership, 11.1% chance to be an optimal. Yeah, that's it's a must-win game for the Cowboys. Definitely some interest there. Actually, surprised to see how good Tyler Higbee looks at 7.5% projected ownership, 17% chance to be an optimal. I guess it's a pretty good matchup against the Seahawks. I guess I can't buy into this Rams offense completely. I struggle there with buying into this Rams offense, but our tools, Tyler Higbee looks pretty great.
I don't disagree whatsoever. I don't buy into him at all either, but he's been involved, and it's not like Seattle's defense is all that impressive either.
Right.
Andrew mentioned Trey McBride. It's funny. I said this last week that with this Arizona team, everyone was going to Dortch as a value play, and I wasn't making any predictions here, but saying more so, now that it's not him and it's was it David Blau, right? Like now but wasn't it Blau that played last game?
Yes,
it was Blau.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, who knows? Maybe it's Trey McBride that ends up being his safety blanket like Dortch was the week before. That was a throwaway. Like, hey, you have no idea. Why are we high on Greg Dortch when it's a totally different quarterback in here? McBride had 10 targets last week, 7 for 78 in the score against Atlanta. Problem is this comes against a San Francisco team that might be a little bit more punishing, a little bit less forgiving here. And sure, you can look at last week and be like, yeah, but look what Jared Stidham did. That's less of a trend than it is just an anomaly, in my opinion. Well, maybe Jared Stidham's not all that bad, but we'll see. I don't know. I think McBride's fine. Jelani, the Millie Maker winner, Utica in the big Millie, smaller field, but higher entry. He had Jelani Woods at tight end and won it. So It was just all it was opening up salary. Kylan Granson's out. Maybe you go back there. I prefer Matt Ryan, but it's going to be Sam Ehlinger. So that kind of sucks. I mean, ultimately, I don't think Lamar plays. John Harbaugh the other day essentially was saying, we'll listen to Lamar and we'll listen to the doctors, but right now we don't really have an update. So it does not look like he's going to be playing, at least not where we stand right now. That makes things difficult. The Cardinals have the lowest implied total on the entire slate at 13 points. So that's less encouraging than you'd hope for.
Yeah.
And then if Fields plays, I'll go to some Cole Kmet. The Vikings defense is just so terrible. They're so bad that I have no problem. If they're like, yeah, Fields is good to go. He's a full go, no restrictions. Him and Cole Kmet make for a decent stack. Dalton Schultz at 6%. That's pretty much where I'm at tight end. You got anything to add before we go to top stacks?
No, I think that was a good call out on Kmet. I just want to two things I want to say. So somebody brought up you were talking about the Niners and says I misspoke earlier when I said the Niners won't have anything to play for if the Vikings lose. I had not thought about the fact that the Eagles play at the same time and they still could lock up the 1 seed. So I guess they will have incentive regardless. And the other thing you brought up Greg Dortch just now. You and Ben talked about it yesterday on the show a little bit, and I was shocked to hear that Greg Dortch had 10 targets in the last game, including 3 red zone targets. He let us all down, but even against this Niners defense, if he's going to be getting 10 targets, I actually think that I do still have some interest in Greg Dortch as well. We didn't bring him up talking about wide receivers. So I just want to add that if he's going to be getting double-digit targets like he has both of the past 2 games, even against the Niners, like his targets are short targets. Like they're even against a great defense, they're going to let him catch the ball. They're just probably going to tackle him quickly for the Niners most of the time. So could still have some PPR upside for Greg Dortch. But yeah, as far as tight ends go, I'm with you. Trey McBride, if they go back to David Blau, maybe he's kind of interesting. But I think we've talked about pretty much all of the more interesting tight end options.
All right. So let's talk about top stacks here. It's really tough right now. It's really, really tough right now because Buffalo and Cincinnati are both up there towards the top. We got Philly at 12% in our top stack tool, top stack probability. Oh, by the way, last thing here, guys, BetMGM, 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. You know the drill, especially if you're in Ohio. Just get all the free shit you can. Now that so I actually put all of the links for all of the books down there if you're in Ohio, because if you have $30, there's 4 different books where combined 30, not 38, 4 different books. You have $30 that you can scatter across those. You're getting $800 in bonus bets. But if you're not in Ohio like me and you want to take advantage of getting 2 free months of Stokastic and say maybe you haven't made it to the Hall of Fame yet, maybe you're rocking that avatar. You're rocking the Stokastic Hall of Fame avatar. Stokastic.com/avatar, by the way. You wanted to get the free month. You haven't binked yet. You haven't gotten up there, but you're trying, maybe grinding smaller stakes, don't have enough money to pay for the membership, particularly for 2 months. Here's your shot. 2 free months. Get your foot in the door. All it takes is $10, clicking the link down below, putting a bet on any straight bet. And once that happens, you don't have to win or lose. Once that happens, boom, you are in the door. 2 free months, every sport, every tool. You can get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, and you're in business. Get up on the Hall of Fame and do so by spending nothing, $10. So many people are like, hey, I'd like to get in here, but I'm grinding right now. I'm grinding small stakes. I don't have a big bankroll. I'm not Neil Orfield. Well, guess what? Neil Orfield used the tools to get where he's at today, and you can do the same for $10. It's that simple. Just follow the steps with that link. You're getting 2 free months, no strings attached. And if you hate it, you can bounce. my hope and my guess is you'll love it and you'll stick around. That's why we want you to experience this and take advantage of the tools. But if you don't, no big deal. 2 free months, totally free, no strings attached. Links down there in the description. All you need is $10 and 2 minutes of your time to sign up. But yeah, Minnesota's up there as they should be, assuming they all start. Philly's up there. I think we both kind of talked ourselves into some Philly stacks here. And then Buffalo and Cincinnati round out the guys with 10 plus or teams with top 10+% top stack probability.
Yeah, those are the teams that I want to talk about. The Vikings, pretty clearly, I love, and that you can go a little bit cheaper with Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, not quite as expensive as Philly, a little bit tougher to play Philly with all the guys you want with Brown and Devontae Smith, but still they have a 12% chance of being in the top stack. And with weird things being weird in week 18, value might open up. It actually might be possible to get to this Philly stack as we potentially see some starters rested and maybe some better backup options. So we'll have to pay attention to news and see how viable it is to play the Eagles that you really want to play. I was just noticing, I hadn't really thought much about the Chargers here. They actually look pretty great. 3.1% projected ownership for Justin Herbert, 6.8% chance to be in the top stack. I'm wondering, did I miss an injury or something to Austin Eckler? Because we have him projected for a 14% ownership with a 1% chance of being optimal against a Denver defense that just doesn't seem all that interested in playing much.
That might just be, that's probably just something we need to update because they have a shot at locking up the 5 seed.
Right.
And if they do, that means that they're facing one of Jacksonville and Tennessee, which is a spot you'd certainly like to be in. Because if you're in a 6 seed, that means you're facing one of what? Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati?
Yeah. You'd rather have the higher seed here. So
yeah, big time.
So I don't know what's going on there, but I think it's hard to have. I think I have more interest than the current boom bust would suggest in Austin Eckler against this Broncos defense. They are 22nd against the rush. They are 4th against the pass, but more recently the Broncos defense just not that great. So just going back to that, maybe you can throw Austin Eckler into, since we're talking about top stacks here, we've got the Chargers, positive leverage on a Chargers stack. You can obviously consider Austin Eckler in that Chargers stack as well against this Denver defense. So yeah, I think those are our real top stacks. The Eagles, the Vikings, probably the ones I have the most interest in. The Bengals look really good. I'm assuming this game is going to play. Joe Burrow projected for 7% ownership, 13.5% chance to be in the top stack. Pretty solid stack there. Do you think you would go to any Niners stacks against the Cardinals?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Good.
Look, if you go up if you go up huge and you pull your guys midway through the 4th or like early 4th, it's also entirely possible that they've done enough in that allotted time. So like, it doesn't really matter when the points come, right? It matters if they come. It's hard, but that's a 4. You mentioned this earlier. That's a 4 p.m. game. Eagles are a 4 p.m. game. So yeah, wait, no, I think the Niners, do the Niners need the Vikings to lose? I thought if the Niners won and the Eagles lost, just that would be enough to get them the 1 seed.
I believe they are, yes, they would have the 1 seed if they win and the Eagles lose, but there is still seeding implications for the Niners. Could be the 3 seed if they lose and the Vikings win. If the Vikings lose, then they're guaranteed at least the 2 seed. But then they would get the 1 seed then if the Eagles lose as well. So yeah, they're gonna
but the Vikings can win and still get the 3 seed. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yes, yep,
yeah, and 49ers need the Eagles to lose. So, yeah. Look, what we do know is that Brock, they don't want to throw a ton with this guy. They probably won't need to. That's the only thing, that it's the passing volume. I think I'd rather take pieces of this game instead of fully stacking San Francisco. Kittle, McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk's looking to get to that 1K mark, but he's kind of expensive. Probably Kittle and McCaffrey for me make the most sense. I'm assuming at this stage of the game, you just hold Deebo Samuel out, right? That it seems silly to think that he would return for week 18 as 14-point favorites when you don't actually need him.
Right. That's my assumption as well. And obviously that would change the equation with Kittle and McCaffrey and Ayuk as well if Deebo does come back, but I'm assuming he's going to be out too.
Last question for you here. Jet stacks. It's ugly. We don't have them rated as a high stack. Minnesota or Miami secondary has been less than impressive this season. 1 point spread in this game. I think there are possibly some reasons to make an argument that such a dirt cheap stack could be viable, especially after last week when it all just fell apart. But this total is down to 38.5 now. Neither team has a high implied total. Just wanted to get your thoughts because of how cheap this stack is for the Jets.
Yeah, it's hard not to have some interest. I mean, I loved them so much last week, and they let me down in a big way.
Yeah, I like them too, man.
Yeah. But I do still have some interest against this Miami defense. The Jets are probably going to want to come in and play spoilers. So yeah, I have some interest. They don't look great in the top stack. So 3.8% projected ownership for Mike White, 1.1% chance of being optimal, and only a 1.6% chance of being the best point per dollar stack too. So that's the part that I'm like, they only have a 1.6% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. Takes away some of my interest here. But they're playable, I would say, against this Miami defense. If we assume that Mike White, maybe that was a blip last week, and maybe it wasn't that great the week before that either. But he's shown good form in spots before. He certainly could do it against this Miami defense. So yeah, I think a little bit of interest, not a high priority for me this week like they were last week.
Hey, follow Neil at Player Q DFS. What do you got going on? Tell the people coming up throughout the rest of the week. Anything going into week 18?
So nothing tomorrow. We've got no Thursday night football. Yep. So my usual busy Thursday, not happening tomorrow. But Friday, I'll be doing it'll be a strategy show with Alex this week. We're not going to be doing On the Contrary. We're just going to be doing, I believe it's a Saturday strategy show. And then on Saturday, I'll be back with Greg doing either Live Before Lock or Deeper Dive. I'm not sure which on Saturday afternoon. I believe I have a Sunday night football show on Sunday. So, a lot of the usual stuff, but no Thursday night football.
All right. My picks for every game video will be up tonight. This is not easy. I started real early today working on this one. It's not easy. Some of them are just, it's hard to figure out, put it that way, but check it out. I'm going to go over all of the scenarios, everything to get you guys set up from a betting perspective as well. And you guys know Prize Picks, if you're looking to get in, BetMGM, you want some free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, or you want to try the 5 free days if you're already at Prize Picks or BetMGM, all those links in the description. And if you're in Ohio, just click on them all and take advantage of some free money these days. Won't be around forever. So good time to get in on that. But I appreciate you guys. As always, hit that thumbs up on your way out. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for the Marathon Matchup Show for week 18. Oh, and shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one. Peace.